Hey everybody, welcome to day number 15 of the 31 Days of Tarot Challenge hosted by Ethony. Today's prompt is to share some of our thoughts and opinions on the court cards within the tarot. So this one, I had to put a lot more thought into it. Yeah, it's a little more of a serious philosophical subject than the previous videos. So first, I think like most tarot readers, I found the court cards the most difficult to learn. They're very intimidating, they can be very confusing, and I think anyone learning the tarot might be put off by these cards because they're the most difficult to translate in a meaningful way and can often appear like they just don't make any sense given the context of the tarot cards in a particular reading. So having said that, are they even necessary? Well, yes, just because they're difficult to learn doesn't mean they don't have a purpose. So I do believe that they are necessary, or at least something like the court cards are necessary. At the very least, I feel like kings and queens, um, or an equivalent are pretty important. I'm a little bit more on the fence about the pages and the knights. Um, yeah. So if you were to remove court cards, like all of the court cards, from the deck, I feel like you're lowering the value of the deck. And I don't mean that in a financial way. I don't mean like you just toss out all the courts and then try to sell it on eBay or something like that. That's not what I mean. I mean in a value in terms of its function. If you remove them, then in my opinion, you need to replace them with something of greater value. And there are a lot of decks out there that do that. They're out there on the market. So what kind of problems are there with court cards? What are my issues with the court cards? Because I have a few. Number one, probably a big one for a lot of people, are that the males rank higher in line than the females. So kings always sit higher than queens, knights always sit higher than pages. That's one issue. Second, I have tons of issues with pages. So first with pages is that they aren't always female. So that brings a gender imbalance to the court. So if they look like males, then that makes the kings, the pages, and the knights all male, with only 1 out of 4 being female, the queens. So there's a gender imbalance in those cases. And then another issue I have with pages is, why are they dressed in such simple clothes? You know, like, okay, there may be some reasons for that. But if you're going to represent them as a female archetype, as a counterpart to the knights, then why are they dressed like peasants? Why aren't they something more equivalent in stature to the knights? Why don't you call them something like princesses or maidens or something like that? And if you're going to use pages to represent children, then um, then you got to do something about the knights, because you have that gender imbalance again. Why are children either gender neutral or male, and then all the knights are male? I think in that case you need a gender neutral replacement for knights. Um, Another issue I have with pages is that I often, when I'm doing readings, I find them redundant, because they just duplicate the aces of the suit. So, aces and pages can represent new beginnings and early stages and messages and opportunities. And so, again, I feel like their only purpose is to balance the masculine energy of the knights, but they often drop the ball at doing that. So yeah, I do have a lot of issues with, your traditional court card system. But thankfully, there are a variety of decks out there that address just that issue, and people have taken advantage of creative license to alter those traditional roles and archetypes. Some decks will put queens at the top instead of kings, or they'll rename them as goddess or priestess or some other female title. It often depends on the theme of the deck. Other decks maintain just the queen and king for that kind of male, masculine, feminine balance, and then they replace the knights and the pages with something entirely different. For example, I have my Dreams of Gaia deck here, and the creator did just that. There are no knights and there are no pages. Instead of pages, you have what are called balancing and realignment cards. I'll just find one here. Yeah, so here, if I show, sorry, reflection. This would be a replacement for the page of cups, or a page of water. She calls it emotional and intellect realignment. So if this card came up in a reading, it would be saying that something about your emotions and your ability to reason and rationalize are not balanced. They're out of balance. So one is taking priority over another when you should be considering the other. So for example, if you are making a decision from an emotional place because you're angry or you're upset or you're in love, whatever, you're probably not being very rational. So you need to step back and remove yourself, be more objective, and make more rational decisions. Or perhaps you're being too logical and too rational and too objective, and you're not considering the feelings of others. You're not being compassionate enough. So that would be a reason, that's what those balancing and realignment cards are for. Another one here for the fire, suit of fire, is balancing masculine and feminine. So whatever, the question of the reading would be, it would be, okay, you need to bring in some more masculine qualities if you're approaching it from a more feminine point of view, or vice versa. Okay, where are we? Yeah, and the knights. So instead of knights, the Dreams of Gaia deck has a new system. So there's no knights, but in their place are unique characters for every suit that represent a particular a person. It's still a person, but it's a person with a particular talent and responsibility. So for the suit of fire, here we have the hero. So the hero has a talent and a responsibility to protect people, to be brave, and to know when to sacrifice themselves for the sake of others, to do what is right. There is an element of chivalry and bravery and courage and sacrifice with this card. So responsibility, there's that responsibility. Another one that I like is the suit of earth. So in this case, we have the seneschal. The seneschal kind of acts as the hand of the king, the one who has access to all the king's coffers and would collect the taxes and would enforce the law, kind of acts as judge and jury. And there's a lot of responsibility with that, because not only do you have the ear of the king, you can be an influencer and an advisor, but you're also there with the people as well. So I think it's really, you're in a delicate position where it comes to making friends and enemies. Where are your loyalties? That's why the dog is there. And I think the ants represent, a lot of hard work and teamwork, and the dogs represent loyalty. Where are your loyalties? Are your loyalties to the king to make sure that the king is taken care of, and at what expense? And or are you going to betray the king in favor of the people, and what are the risks involved with that? So it's a very delicate and important place to be. A lot of privileges come with this, but also a lot of responsibilities. So those are a couple examples of characters that replace the knights in the Dreams of Gaia. And I really like it. I really like the system because you still have the kings and queens, you still have that balance of masculine and feminine, but you have this new system. And I think it makes a lot more sense because, like I said, sometimes the pages are redundant or they don't make sense, and the knights just often create this gender imbalance. So what do I think that the court cards are necessary? Yes, but I feel like they need some revision from traditional systems. Do I think the court cards are outdated? Yeah, in many ways they definitely are. There is, they were invented in a time of sexism and misogyny, and it shows. So yes, now having said that, I am a person who loves traditions and history. I love knowing where things came from, how they originated, and how traditions have evolved and carried on. And I love being part of that story and those rituals. However, I also understand that there is a time for tradition and there is a time for change. So when traditions no longer have a place, no longer have a role, um, especially when they start holding us back from gain and progress, it's time to revise or let go. So I still think it's important to understand the origins of, in this case, tarot. And so I would never want to erase traditional systems like Rider-Waite or the Tarot de Marseille from existence, because I think as students, it's important to know where it came from and how it came to be and why and how it has changed over the years. So for that, I'm glad that these older traditional decks still exist, but I'm also grateful that there are literally there's a deck for everyone out there. So if you want to feel empowered as a woman, there are decks that are kind of see that feminine empowerment. If you want to feel empowered as a man, there are those. If gender isn't relevant to you, there are other decks out there. I mean, there's something for everyone. So that's my thoughts on the court cards. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Did I miss anything? I'm always open to discussion and debate, so please feel free to share your thoughts and opinions by leaving a comment. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow for day number 16. Ciao.